Hey everybody, my name is Bonisile and you're watching Footy Notes. So today I'm talking about Spain, Switzerland, and looking at the journey of the Spanish team in the tournament as well as what's to come, looking forward, and just looking at like how they've done in this tournament. They've been. I want to be sympathetic and be respectful to the fact that Spain was struggling with COVID-19 coming into this tournament. I also want to respect like Luis Enrique's challenges that also have taken him away from the hot seat at different times in the last year. He's had some of his problems and that could not have been helpful in Spain's preparation for this tournament. But after being goal shy in the first few of their games, talking about Spain specifically here, they explode in their last game in the group stage and win 5-0, and then they win their next game in round of 16, 5-3 against Croatia in what was a very exciting game where Spain, like there was a 3-1 lead for Spain, and then Croatia scores 2 goals in the last 10 minutes. Boom, blows the whole thing wide open, and then Spain takes that one over in extra time. But I was not very excited about I was happy for them because I like Luis Enrique. He played for Barcelona, and as a kid growing up, I used to like Barcelona, and I like him. I like people who are bold and who trust themselves and not shy to express honest opinions. And he's one, right? He's a real dude, and I really appreciate that about him. Whether he's wrong or right, he said where you stand with him. And with the Spanish team, he's done some really cool things, and he's been able to get them playing Spain football. But they have a massive striker problem, and I think that's been part of their problem in the beginning of this tournament, and it was part of their problem again in the previous game. Where they had so much of the ball against the Swiss. Switzerland finds themselves, with some misfortunes. I'm coming back to what happened in the game with Spain, but let me just talk a little bit about what happened with Switzerland. Goes into this game without their leader in Granit Xhaka, and then the guy who replaces Xhaka, Dennis Zakaria, scores an own goal early in the game. Another thing that goes wrong. Like it was a case of like things that can go wrong went wrong here. Lose Xhaka, score an own goal with his replacement, and then get a ridiculous red card thanks to Michael Oliver, and then play the rest of the game basically with about 20-something minutes left with 10 men. Then play all of extra time with 10 men. Like, look, Switzerland, we're underdogs 11v11, and so I didn't expect them to do anything like they did against France in this game because I knew Spain were going to be fresher. I think France was caught tired, and I think some coaching incompetence, if I can call it that, from Deschamps. I know some people may not like me calling it that, but Deschamps made some weird decisions that really helped Switzerland. France played only 20 minutes of football there because they were so tired, and they played the same group of players for 4 games in a row without using their bench as deeply as they could, and they played center backs and midfielders at fullback, and that didn't help them. But we're not talking about France today. But I'm just trying to say that I thought Spain would be better than France in this game, and they were. They controlled the ball better, and they had. I know that the end of the game statistics were skewed by the red card, but Spain, even with that said, they had 72% of the ball. They had the better quality chances. Almost 3.0 expected goals compared to Switzerland's 0.84 expected goals. They had 10 shots on target and to Switzerland's 2. And Switzerland scored with one of those 2 goals. Spain scored 1 goal from 10 shots on target with an XG that was that high. So that means, there's a problem there. Like they just don't convert their chances, Spain. And they flirt with danger if they continue to do that against an Italian team that's going to be a little bit more ruthless, maybe a lot more ruthless than the Swiss. They're not going to be goal shy. And Switzerland, they did what they could. They leaned into their strengths, tried to play a deep kind of like low block to mid to low block, and try to hit them on the counter. But then again, speaking of things that went wrong, another weapon for Switzerland on the counter-attack was Brille Mbolo. Mbolo gets injured in this game really early, has to go off. So Spain had a lot of things happen for them in this game, I'd be surprised if they are this lucky again, play against a team who loses. I mean, I know Italy lost Spinazzola, but still, that shouldn't be, considered to the same degree as Switzerland losing Xhaka. So I do think in the game here against Switzerland, Spain got really, really lucky, even all the way down to the penalties. I think Switzerland's penalties had been seen before by Unai Simon, because a lot of players who kicked for Switzerland had kicked in that French game, and many of them kicked in the same direction in similar spots. Ruben Vargas kicked in the same direction, but like lifted his kick this time, and because I think he went for power and maybe leaned a little bit too far back and lifted the ball over, because Lloris in the French game almost saved his kick. And then Manuel Akanji, went to the same side, keep his left, the keeper's right, saved this time. He went low, and the keeper saved it. Fabian Schär, scored in the previous game, missed. So, I think it was not a very favorable situation for the Swiss once it got to extra time, because Switzerland had been running an extra 50-something minutes with just 10 men, and also they had shown their hand in the previous round by having gone to penalty shootout in that round. So with that said, I do sympathize with Switzerland, but I wanted Spain to win. I just didn't think it would go this way. I didn't think Spain would need penalties to resolve this issue between them and the Switzerland very determined, well-oiled machine Switzerland team. But it did go that far. Spain gets an own goal in the 8th minute, and then Switzerland equalized courtesy of my guy, Shedran Shaqiri, the man with the thickest thighs in football. He stepped up. He was captain on the day, really stepped up for his country, but it wasn't to be for them. And, so now let's see what Spain will give us in the semis against Italy, because that should be, the game of the tournament, of the games that remain. I do think Denmark could beat England, but I think if they're going to beat England, they're probably going to have to play smart and box above their weight a little bit and box clever, which would probably mean Denmark will have to play maybe less sexy football than they've played, which I've enjoyed, thoroughly enjoyed. England have been boring but effective, so it's going to be interesting to see how that game goes. But this game, Spain and Italy, should be a fascinating one, because both teams like to play with the ball. And so it's going to be interesting to see, who's going to have most of the ball here, and how the other team is going to respond to being starved of the ball, because somebody's going to be starving at times in this game. And so, you may need to rely on your defense a little bit more than you've had to in previous games. In which case, I think Italy might be better than Spain in that regard. We'll see though, because in football anything can happen. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Spanish team and their journey in this Euro so far. They went goal shy and exploded for 2 games, and then the last game they didn't even score a goal and won. After 1-1 in full time and extra time, they won in penalties. Hopefully they find their goal scoring boots, so that the semi is interesting and exciting against Italy. But let's wait and see. I'm not convinced, and I hope Morata proves me wrong, but he hasn't convinced me yet, because he continues to just fluff his lines, man. He doesn't do enough to quiet the critics as far as his, performances in front of goal. It's for a guy who has had as much money spent on him in transfers. He is surprisingly underwhelmed if you compare the prices people have paid for him. Hopefully he does something in this tournament and wins it for the Spanish. We'll see. For the Spanish fans, hopefully that's the case. But I'm not convinced with him. I would even go as far as to say maybe Luis Enrique would be better off starting this kid from Manchester City as a centre forward, Ferran Torres. But we'll see what he'll do. Thank you for watching. I'm Bonisile, and this is Footy Notes.